Hey, PV family, Sammy here with a missionary update from the field. This morning, I have the privilege to introduce you to a couple that we recently added to our missionary family. They're new missionaries for us, but they're not new to PV. They actually met here at Pleasant Valley while attending college years ago, and we'll go more into detail on that in the full interview that we'll post online, so please watch it. They're Justin and Rebekah Van Dalen, and they serve in the country of Ghana in Africa with the International Justice Mission, IJM, with the very important mission of combating child slavery and sex trafficking in that country. So Justin and Rebekah, it's so cool to be able to connect with you guys. And the work that you're doing in Ghana with IJM, International Justice Mission. Let's talk about some of the connection, the history and the connection that you have with Pleasant Valley. Actually, we go way back to the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when actually met Justin at a class, music history class at UWL. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the connection and knowing Justin. Actually, we met at this music history class, and then I found out that you were playing for the crew band, leading worship for Campus Crusade at UWL. And then you invited me to come and help lead worship, and I joined the team, and the rest is history. Then you introduced me to Brandon back then, and we became really good friends. And now then he brought me here to Pleasant Valley. So it's amazing how things go full circle. But yes, absolutely. So let's talk about your connection with PV. How did you guys meet and all of that stuff? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was a student at Winona State from 2002 until 2007. Went to Pleasant Valley Church. That was my home church that whole time, and was very involved with H2O with Keith Carpenter. I met Justin the summer of 2004 when he walked into Pleasant Valley. I noticed him at church that day, that summer. And then you were also on the Breathe Band, the first Breathe Band.
Yeah. So even before Beck and I met, I had some friends that went to WSU. I was at UW La Crosse, and the Breathe ministry got kicked off at Pleasant Valley, and so I would come up on Friday evenings and be part of the Breathe Band and played with Brandon Ziske and with Paul Amdahl. I was the drummer that got to be part of that, so it was really fun. And then when I moved to Winona after graduating school, worked in town there for a few years, met Becca and was involved at Pleasant Valley, played in the worship team, and that was a lot of our connections in Winona was at Pleasant Valley.
That was our home church when we first got married before we moved out of Winona. So
yeah, and actually, Keith Carpenter did your wedding, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did. And I think
it was his first one.
I think you sang at it, Sammy.
Yeah, I sang at your wedding. Absolutely, never forget that. That was very special, very special. How did God call you to get involved with International Justice Mission, IJM? And I know that you served first in Uganda, and then God brought you to the States, and then God called you to Ghana. So how did you get involved with that ministry?
Yeah, I think our ending up in Africa is in some ways a surprise. It wasn't necessarily something we'd always thought about. Africa had been in my heart in a general way for a long time, but you can share that story.
Sure. So the short answer is Becca. That's how we ended up here. But maybe the longer story, Becca had spent a little time in Kenya while she was a student and before we got married, and had come back to the US saying, hey, we need to go back together someday. Really important experiences that she had. And she had been engaged with Compassion International with a couple of young students in Uganda, and I think just Uganda. But I never really had any particular desire to go to the mission field. I was just, working in supply chain management. And eventually I decided to go to law school. And around the time that I started law school, someone from IJM came and spoke at the church we were attending in Rochester, Minnesota, which is where we moved after Winona. And they spoke there, and we became kind of interested in IJM and thought, wow, wouldn't it be incredible to work with an organization like that someday? But I was thinking later down the line. And then as I was finishing law school or in law school, Becca found these opportunities to do legal fellowships with IJM. And eventually I decided to apply for one of those fellowships, and we weren't sure what would really happen with it.
We had 2 kids at the time. It seemed a little crazy.
Yeah, I thought the timing was, I wasn't so sure about it. I was trying to transition careers, but God closes some doors and opens others. And so I finished law school in May, took the bar exam in July, and by September we were signed up to go to Uganda to work with IJM in the following year. So we spent a little less than a year and a half in Uganda, and there we worked on defending property rights for widows and orphans who had their land taken from them violently, which is a foreign concept to most people in the US, but a really serious issue in particularly northern Uganda, where we were.
It's probably pretty common there.
It's quite common. There's a lot of land conflict generally. And certainly when a man dies, his family often becomes pretty vulnerable to just other people, might be relatives, neighbors, whomever, who want the land, because the land really is the primary resource in that particular region. So we spent time there, and it was good and beautiful and challenging. And we were supposed to be there for a year for the fellowship, ended up extending a little bit, and then coming back to the US, back to Rochester, where we had been for several years before. So
not knowing that we'd ever necessarily go back overseas.
Yeah, we weren't sure. We knew at the time that we were interested in just moving forward the mission of IJM. It's an incredible thing to work with a bunch of Christian brothers and sisters from all sorts of different backgrounds, just kind of shoulder to shoulder every day to defend those who don't have anyone to stand up for them, those who be enslaved or abused or maltreated and don't really have recourse. And so it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And I get to see in my day-to-day work just a lot of really transformative sort of things. And so it's a blessing in a way, but it's challenging too. And so we came back to the US knowing we're very invested in this mission, but we don't know if we'll ever end up back in the field. And then I started to do some work in Rochester again, and the person who was the country director in Uganda when I worked in that office called a little while later and said, "Hey, what do you guys think about coming to Ghana?" And for a little while we're like, "Yeah, we're not sure it's really going to work all that well." And he said, "Well, just pray about it. It's not an immediate thing, but I have some ideas and I think you might be a good fit for it." And so eventually, over the course of probably 8 months or so, really, we prayed. We talked with a lot of people who are wise, people in our church, elders, and eventually decided we would go ahead. Mm-hmm. I think it was in the end it was Becca having some conversations with some women that she was in a Bible study with that kind of led to, let's step out and let's go. Yeah. Awesome. So that was mid 2019 when we came to Ghana, and we're excited to be here.
Absolutely. And so we are so excited that you are there doing some amazing work, and share with us about what's going on in Lake Volta in Ghana and the work that you do there. Sure.
So Lake Volta is a really large man-made lake.
Largest in the world, right?
One of the largest in the world. Depends how you measure, but yes, one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. And it's a couple of rivers that come together into a large river called the Volta River. There was a dam built, and so it's this kind of really long, sprawling river that kind of raises and lowers depending on whether it's rainy season or dry season. Mm-hmm. And it used to be a lot of forest land, and so when the dam was built and the water rose, then underneath the water there's a lot of trees, submerged trees, semi-submerged trees, and there's a fishing industry that's developed on the lake. And often the fishermen utilize children to work on their fishing boats. And it's extremely dangerous work. The kids will do everything from, paddle the boats, to, kind of scooping or bailing water out, casting the nets, pulling in the fish, cleaning fish. But one of the things they also do is when those nets get stuck on the trees that are submerged in the water, it's usually, the young kids that'll be sent down to try and untangle those trees. And so it's extremely dangerous. And, we know a lot of children who we've been able to rescue from slavery situations who know someone else who died drowned on the lake. So the fishermen will often use trafficked children who are bought or rented for a period of time for whatever, $100 or, a cow or some other sort of trade. And a lot of times the families of those children are just deceived, right? They'll have a recruiter or a trafficker will come to their community, which is probably quite poor, physically poor, and they will come and say, hey, I know it's hard to send your kids to school and feed your kids, so let us take this child. And usually when they try and traffic them, they're usually between the ages like 5 and 7. And so let us take the child with us. We're going to go to this different area. We'll send him to school. We can teach him how to fish after school. He just help out for a few hours a day, and then he'll learn how to fish. So he's got a future, and we'll take care of your child, and we'll give you some money. And so families will agree to that. Sometimes just thinking they're giving their child a better future than they would otherwise have. And the child gets there and there's no school. There's very little food. And there's just abuse and slavery. And so we work alongside of local authorities, police, Department of Social Welfare, prosecutors, to find those cases, to make sure that the police know where the case is, and then walk alongside them to get an operation done to remove children from those dangerous and abusive situations. And then work with our aftercare team to get those kids to a safe place, usually a shelter facility for at least a short period of time, where they can be taken care of physically. Often they have medical needs, and then start to be educated. And then we work towards rehabilitation back to their home community, which hopefully is a safe place for them. So we do an assessment to make sure that that's a safe place for that child to go, and there's not a high risk of re-trafficking. So our team kind of works through that whole process on behalf of child slaves, and it's a pretty incredible thing to be a part of, really.
And the ones on the boats are usually boys, but they use girls in different capacities.
Yeah, so we have clients who are both boys and girls, and the stories are sort of equally gut-wrenching, just different contexts. I think last year there was two young girls who were rescued in the same operation, and they were smoking and cleaning fish, getting fish ready for market throughout the day, and then at the night they were forced to serve drinks at the local village drinking place, which I'm sure is a really difficult situation for a young 15-year-old girl.
Absolutely. Wow, that's heavy and really difficult work, and can only imagine how it is to just really get in there and rescue those kids and be a part of that. It's amazing, and that you work with local authorities and do it the legal way and partner with them. It's just is remarkable. What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys face there, ministering there, IJM in Lake Volta and in Ghana there?
The type of work that we do, there's all sorts of everyday challenges, right? You're in remote areas, just logistically it can be difficult to get to the places you need to get to, and those sorts of daily challenges. I think maybe the more overarching challenge is just, you're coming into a place where in a lot of contexts, it's normal to see children working with their families, for example, and even extended families. It's very common for children to go live with an aunt or uncle for a period of time, or a grandparent or something like that.
Yeah.
And they work agriculture, fishing, etc., in a way that's legal. And so that's a very common sort of thing and part of the culture. But what we're talking about is child trafficking, and it's very abusive, very dangerous. And so just working with the local church, with media presence, with government entities, to kind of paint that picture for the general population, so people see what's really happening to some of the children, is a battle that we are just kind of always fighting, and probably will be
awareness to
for a while longer. But yeah, you're trying to bring awareness, and also awareness and maybe just a prioritization, I guess, of how does that issue stack up with other things that people run into in their daily lives, right? So bringing it to the forefront, I guess, might be the way to say it. To say this is something that it's solvable. There's already laws on the books. There's already a lot of people, government, Christian organizations, churches who are on board with saying, oh, this has to stop. This isn't part of the culture. This is just criminal, and it needs to stop. And so just bringing that to the forefront on sort of a continuous basis, to help with those relationships that are really, really important to sustain the work, not only for the rescue work, but then also for the aftercare work, right? Because that child needs to go someplace safe, go someplace where they feel love, and where they can get an education. And there's a lot of great churches in Ghana, and there's a lot of there's even a lot of shelter organizations and things like that, where there are opportunities for those kids to be loved and to know that they have value. And so bringing that message to the forefront and getting those resources aligned is important. So it's a constant challenge, but a place where we get to see some cool victories as well.
Absolutely. How has COVID affected Ghana, especially specifically where you guys live? How are the kids doing school, all that stuff? How are things there with that?
So super exciting news in Ghana last week, because we just got a giant shipment of AstraZeneca. Got a big shipment of AstraZeneca vaccine. You're the first country in Western Africa to get it. And so that's been really exciting news. I think generally the cases in Ghana of COVID are rising. It's much smaller than you'd see in the US, but it has changed daily life. Thankfully, the kids just went back to school. Schools just reopened, which was important because for most of the schools here, there was no online school. And so the kids were at home for a lot of the Ghanaian kids were home for 10 months. So just having the schools opened and kids back in school again is encouraging.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we are doing virtual hybrid stuff. The kids are going full. Everybody's going full in a couple of weeks, I think, here. So in Winona. So it's been a challenge, and I know it's been a challenge for you guys. It's all over the world, but how can we specifically pray for you? I know you mentioned some things earlier, but like if you want to expand a little bit more about how can we support you, lift you up in prayer during this time.
Yeah, so in our home specifically, I am almost 20 weeks pregnant with our 4th child. So you can just pray for
congratulations.
Thank you, of mom and baby. And so our kids are what you would call third culture kids. They've been living a lot of their life in a culture that's not their own, and that comes with its own benefits and challenges. So just pray for our kids as they navigate being in a third culture, and then you can share with that work.
Sure. Yeah. The work that we do, we engage with a lot of different stakeholders. Some of them in government, some of them partner organizations, some of them just communities. Some of our staff are spending a significant amount of time just out in the field interacting with communities, and each community has its own sort of uniqueness. Some of them are very kind of centralized chieftaincies or assembly members that wield a lot of influence in their communities. And so all of those relationships really impact our ability to effectively do our work. And so each morning our team gathers together to pray, and almost every day, I'll say every day, the different teams within our office lift up specific relationships of, meeting with someone who, directs a shelter where we send clients, or meeting with a pastor in, a specific church along the lake, or a member of parliament here in Accra. So all those relationships are really important on so many levels. Mm-hmm. We want to be an organization that lives out our values, right? That we're Christians, we're professionals, we're bridge builders. And so developing and maintaining those relationships well is really important. And the fact of the matter is that the better job we do of that, the more kids we can free from slavery. And that's just the reality of it. So I would say just praying for those relationships with government, with other organizations, with the communities where we're interacting. And that takes a lot of wisdom to navigate some of those things. Mm-hmm. and also just passion, because sometimes we meet barriers, and we need to be able to kind of combine that godly wisdom and godly passion for justice to navigate those situations.
Absolutely. We will definitely be praying for you guys. I know that the work that you do can be dangerous too, so we'll be praying for protection for you guys and your family, your kids, the staff there, for health. God will protect you from COVID and everything else. You are definitely an extension of who we are. All our missionaries, we really see you guys as part of Pleasant Valley. I'm super excited that we get to partner with you, that we get to support you in prayer financially, and hopefully that we can come with a small group of people, or if it's just me, I really want to come visit you there. And please give my love to the people there, to your friends, to your coworkers, and we'll definitely be in prayer. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pleasant Valley.